Hey, what's up? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Movie Buffers. Episode like 32?
13.
32, man.
32. Wow, you've been doing it.
Today we have another guest. I guess he's reoccurring guest on the show. We got Kenny from Your Daily Hour with Me. He's also an author, DJ. I don't know what else.
Wait, show you who I am.
This is an interesting one. I asked you what movie you would be willing to come on here and do with me, and you chose
Friday the 13th.
I chose it. If I had my free reign, I could have chosen something more obscure, but it's probably like I read books on it, and I've watched so many countless documentaries. I think I've read more than one book based on the series.
Is this one your favorite one? The first movie?
Oh yeah, the first out of the franchise, probably number one or number two. They go hand in hand. As far as like favorite movie or franchise or something, I put it at the top. Just because like maybe not for quality, but just because when you're like you have a favorite and you're like, this is my favorite thing, and I decided that it was when I was like a little kid. I was just like, this is my favorite thing.
The sound mix too. I actually have that in my notes here.
Mancini did the score for all of them up until I think Freddy vs. Jason. I think he did the first like 10. I think he scored all of them. I used to have it running when I was a little kid. I had it taped. Like I did the thing where you dub the tapes and I just had it running sometimes. And then I had like the box set and DVDs and yeah, so many times.
It's a force within itself. It became its own nature and even. Coincided with the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Then we got Freddy versus Jason, which, it was story-wise, I felt like that was a pretty epic way to end it, I guess, Yeah. That movie is insane.
It is insane. It really, the characters, they don't go together at all, but maybe that's the purpose of the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, and the director was just doing some crazy shit in that.
Yeah, the director is it Ronnie Yu? Is that right?
Yeah, Ronnie Yu. You could see by looking at his IMDb that he didn't get a lot of work after this.
Oh yeah, he did a lot of. He's like, I think is he Chinese? He's like doing kung fu like stuff in that movie.
Yeah, it felt kind of like a John Woo movie sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I don't know. You be the judge there, Kenny.
They're doing a lot of karate stuff in it. It gets pretty wild, but people hate part five, but I like it. But like 1 through 5 are definitely like my core movies there. And then after, I don't like Kane Hodder. People like Kane Hodder so much, and they're like, oh, Kane Hodder. But Kane Hodder is the guy that played Jason in 6 through like hell. So like 6, 7, 8. Like yeah, that's like Manhattan. 9 is, I think, Hell, right? 9 is Hell? Yeah, because Jason X. And he was in Jason X, too. So Kane Hodder played him from 6 to 10. And he was, like, trying to be, like, in the movie, Jason becomes, like, in number 6, he becomes, like, militant and, like, tough. He's, like doing, like, broody, like, being, like, a badass.
It's all right. I can just bleep it.
Yeah. The other thing I'm saying was way worse.
Yeah, that's true. They're like, what was that? Yes, he was a complete, kind of
a bumbling redneck.
Yeah, just a big bumbling idiot, because that's what it was supposed to be. That's one kind of confusing plot hole, I think, about the whole story. Is like, what did he do? He drowned in that lake, and then he supposedly... Yeah. That's his spirit, but he's an adult, and he came back, and now he's this brooding child with the child's mind,
Yeah. Well, they definitely plan part 2.
Yeah, I've seen part 2.
He's got bag head.
Yeah, the bag on his head. That's one of my favorite looks of his.
I was thinking about this when we were getting ready to do this. Have you ever seen the movie Funny Ha Ha? Which was like have you ever seen mumblecore? Like have you heard of the genre mumblecore? Where it's like nothing happens in the movie. It was like really big and like I think like probably 2004. Mumblecore, they called it. Started off with this movie called Funny Ha Ha, I think. It was mostly like cool city people being cool and talking. And they're like, hey, I'm cool, whatever. Oh, yeah. But and then like nothing happens the whole movie. It's like good Clerks. Actually, I think Friday the 13th though is like maybe like OG Mumblecore. Except for with killing. Yeah, and I've come to love the not killing. When they're just like just like talking to each other and doing this stuff.
Because they're like, the actors have such interesting choices.
Yeah, I think it's pretty improvised.
Yeah, the meat of the story, they went out there with like a script outline, you know?
Yeah.
In Friday the 13th, even, these camp counselors are so, like, cheesy, so that you enjoy kind of seeing them get killed off.
They play strip Monopoly.
I wrote that in my notes too. I was like, strip Monopoly. However the fuck that works.
We're gonna go through the whole synopsis now.
Friday the 13th. So we open up on a random camp with just the counselors, and they're playing guitar together with like no kids around.
In the 50s.
And then the camera's filming in like a POV. It's just kind of feels like a guy is running around with the camera, you know, too. It's like we're already as an audience spying on these teenagers.
Michael, they're like getting together and singing that song.
Yeah, it's like they found these royalty-free campfire songs.
Yeah.
And,
Jesus song.
yeah, and it's a Jesus song, and they're about to go bang.
He wasn't a very good swimmer.
Yeah, the kids go in the barn and start just like banging, or just kind of like fooling around, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even think they get to banging. They don't even get a chance.
Well, I mean, maybe they're like Mormon or like Christian, where it's like dry humping.
Well, I mean, Mormons do anal.
Oh, they do that thing called soaking, where they just kind of like leave it in and like.
Okay. But then they get killed. They're in the barn. They're wearing their clothes. Those shirts, you can get those shirts. The Camp Crystal Lake counselor shirts. It's like not wearing a big Jason shirt, but then you're like, hey, it's like the in-joke T-shirt.
Yeah. So the cameraman murders these two counselors that are like trying to get it in.
Obviously, a man.
The hand of a man, not.
Yeah.
An elderly, where the cinematography like jumps from like run and gun and like hand cam back to like fluid static shots. It's like it's a little daunting at times. They feel like
in the editing. The movie was probably made in the editing.
Really, yeah, it really was, because it just seemed like there was a lot of random shots of random shit, you know.
Yeah, they don't even get killed; they just freeze, right?
Yeah, they just like freeze framed on it. So
maybe they don't even get killed. You don't even know.
Yeah, so we follow some random backpack girl walking through this small hillbilly town. Her name is Annie, and she stops at this towny diner where she meets the guy. Steve, yeah. And then like she runs into that crazy eyes guy.
Crazy Ralph.
You're doomed.
Oh man, this is like gonna be like, do I know this whole movie? You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
Yeah, Camp Blood. So then we meet Kevin Bacon and like two other hillbilly kids driving in a red Ford pickup going up to Camp Crystal Lake.
So I saw Kevin Bacon here in Olympia one time. His son went to school here, so I saw Kevin Bacon, and it really rocked me because I watched Friday the 13th so much. But to see like somebody real, like, oh, what?
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, dude. And like Tremors and shit too. Were you ever a Tremors guy?
I like Tremors, but like I just like saw Friday the 13th so much that when I saw him, I was like, Friday the 13th is like there's these people possibly real, you know, like what?
Yeah. When I worked at Target out there, I heard stories all the time. They're like, Kevin Bacon was just in here walking around. I'm like, no shit, you know.
Yeah, I saw him on the street.
Did you say anything?
No, I didn't want to bug him. It wasn't gonna be like, hey, like it's not gonna be a different.
I mean, you know, he's probably not getting that recognized out in the boonies in fucking Washington.
Come on!
Kevin Bacon.
But they're in a diner, or is it a diner? Or it's like,
well, we were at the diner, and then she leaves after, but it cuts to Kevin Bacon and all these kids driving out to Camp Crystal Lake, and I don't know. I think is this Kevin Bacon's first role? I think this might be Kevin Bacon's first role. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so in the meantime, we cut to this POV shot of the creep watching some people from the woods, and then we get this really goofy guy who frequently impersonates the Native Americans by, you know, putting a feather on his head, and then he goes like full headdress at some point.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Yeah, he didn't even give. He was like pure American Apparel mascot.
Yeah, they really took like in Halloween. They show like they do the POV like in the. I think only in the very beginning of the movie, of the original Halloween. And then they just like totally do it the whole movie. Like, yeah.
No, you're right. I think so.
But then they're like the guy in the woods, you just like know they're in the woods breathing. It really doesn't make any sense if you think about the twist that like an old lady in the woods. So like, what is going on?
Dude, the sound of that like random motorcycle guy when he's driving away, the audio is just like some sound effect, but it didn't match up the like fucking. That's just one thing I wrote down here. And then the random "You're doomed" guy is hiding in the pantry too. Like, what the fuck? What is that guy actually? Does it even explain?
No, and he's riding like a little girl's bike or something weird.
Yeah.
He like biked all the way from
Did like a full like Monty Python like.
and he goes like, I mean, he's like, you're going to Camp Blood. It's like, you're going to Camp Blood.
Yeah, I know. He showed up at Camp Blood. So weird. I do miss the feeling of these kinds of movies though. It's kind of like Evil Dead, with the Evil Dead films, where it seems like everyone was paying out of their own pocket just to be there. And,
Yeah.
Be part of the experience, almost like they were really at camp. And this film just seems like it's just a bunch of random shots of these teenagers hanging out and like walking on logs and shit.
Mumblecore, yeah.
And like running around aimlessly, and like shots of beavers in the pond, exterior shots of nature.
No story.
They're just rebuilding this camp again or something.
They're fixing it up for the summer.
I don't know if it holds up considering this came out in 1980, because we've already had like films like Alien or like Halloween, so like they are cashing in on that Michael Myers success.
Yeah, I mean it's mumblecore though. If you watch it like from a different like the mumblecore perspective, it's just like this movie. It's like avant-garde filmmaking. They don't know, like like they didn't know what was going on. You're like, what's going on? Nobody knows.
And the cameraman is just like, start having sex with each other, and then they start like.
Steve is he's bringing it back. So the camp was closed for a lot of years because of the murders. Because of the murders from the beginning of the movie, so then they closed down the camp, and then Steve Christie buys the camp and decides to open it back up. So he's fixing it up, but everybody in town knows that it's a murder place.
Yeah, okay. So I was kind of wondering if it was like entirely him, or if he was like somebody's like, hey, go fix up that camp, and he's like, he's kind of a grump,
When he's doing it, and then he's like flirting with Alice for some reason, too. Kind of weird. He's the boss though, so that's a little not inappropriate.
Abuse of power. Yeah. I've always hated it when characters play the guitar in these movies too. They're not like actually really playing the guitar. They're just like dubbing over some very stock footage sounding like music. I guess I don't really like it when people play the guitar in real life either. Then we get this really uncomfortable sex scene between Kevin Bacon and Marcy.
Alright?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's when I was like, oh, so there's just a bunch of randoms.
But the swimming is relevant because that's how Jason died. So they're swimming out in the docks, and I think it's probably the same docks. So then they're swimming out there and having a good time, and they start playing Monopoly. Don't they start playing strip Monopoly before Kevin Bacon gets killed too, right? And I don't think anybody's even really stripping except for maybe one guy is in his shorts. That's like the guy. I've come to think that part is one of the best parts of the movie where they're just doing random stuff. I'm just like, this is avant-garde mumblecore.
We get it to the silly guy, like, who gets killed. So, like, because we're getting the really uncomfortable sex scene between Kevin Bacon and Marcy. He's
like the guy already dead above them, so that guy gets killed first. What about the hitchhiker who was killed too? We'll skip that part too. From the very beginning of the movie, that the weird random hitchhiker gets killed with she's holding a banana, she gets her throat slit. Lots of throat slitting in this movie too. Like Friday the 13th kind of gets to be known as like the wild weapons and just like weird killing, but like almost like more than half of people, all they do is get their throat slit.
That's like they perfected the that one special effect and just ran with it.
She's holding the banana and the banana falls over it. It's like, you can just hold this banana. Like how about you just hold this banana? I heard they shot all that stuff just real running gun, just like. But the guy gets killed too. How does the guy on the top one get killed? He's killed first. Or they don't show it. He's just up there dead. I
don't think it really showed it. The big shock of him being dead was when they like pan up and they're like having sex, and they pan up and he's just laying there.
And then she gets up and goes to the bathroom or something.
We see Kevin Bacon. He's just laying there chilling out, and then he gets stabbed through the throat. It's pretty crazy how the killer stabs him through the neck, like through the bed, like through like all the springs and shit.
Definitely man hands still, like grabbing his neck or whatever.
Yeah, totally huge guy.
Only like pushing the thing through the bed. Like what is that?
She's probably got arthritis, There's no way.
Is that an arrow? Like what is
that's
that?
what I thought. Is that a fucking arrow? Like the silly guy had probably while he was appropriating and
like a light a light arrow.
That's what I wrote. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how what force they would need to just anybody would need to stab up through a whole mattress and then through a man's neck.
Especially with the arrow, it wouldn't even be long enough, probably.
That's why it's like, did the mom do? I don't know.
Oh, is it Jason? Some people think that it's Jason is doing it somehow.
Yeah, no, yeah, I feel like it still might be, especially after rewatching it. Like, you can't hide those man hands.
But that would be, I mean, that's total retconning because they did not plan for that in the future. Like when they were making the movie, they just
Right. Kind of seems like all these camp counselor kids are like in drama or something, you know? Like they seem like theater kids.
Yeah.
They're always doing some crazy performative art.
Yeah.
Marcy's death was pretty funny. You know how she reacted before she got the axe to the face. That was a good kill.
What's she doing in the bathroom? She's like saying like weird things.
I think she was singing about something in the mirror. Like, I don't know. Like it was kind of like in Halloween when they improvised their little songs. So, I mean, meanwhile, we cut back and then this is where it shows the counselors playing strip Monopoly. So, and then we cut back to the weirdo Steve, the older guy we saw chopping a stump earlier. So he's like stranded in the rain and ends up crashing. And then gets a ride from a cop.
I thought he gets a ride from Pamela Voorhees, doesn't he?
No, he gets a ride from the cop. It doesn't show Pamela Voorhees at all.
The cop is there in the daytime. We skipped that part too. When the cop shows up and is like,
yeah. No, I mean, I kind of mentioned like his motorcycle. Like he kind of just like shows up and he's like, yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, because the cop's the one that tells him it's Friday the 13th and it's a full moon. He's like, it's gonna get fucking crazy out here. He's like a very superstitious guy. Steve makes it all the way back to camp through hell and high water, and then he gets taken out before he could even make it, past the Camp Crystal Lake sign. Bummer. He made it through the thunderstorm, gets killed.
He gets killed. Yeah, okay.
Like right before he could even get in there. Yeah, there is. And then Alice comes down, and then she discovers Bill. He's like pinned to the wall after he goes to check on a generator or something and doesn't come back. And that kill was pretty fucking brutal too. Like both of those.
Okay, yeah. So she sees the body, and then she goes out. And when she goes outside, she sees the other person who's swinging or hanging. Is that right?
She walks over here, and then the guy's body just like flies down.
Pamela Voorhees, old lady, hoisting up a grown man, and also like not even like also setting up some kind of trap system so that when somebody walks close, the body will fall over. Yeah. So she had to tie. She like lifted up the whole grown man, like tied him up, like had him like suspended up here.
There's
like
no fucking way. Yeah.
It's a kind of, like pulley system to like get him to fall down in the way that he did.
I have a theory that it is Jason, but there's also multiple Jasons because you need like 5 guys to do all this shit.
Yeah. When she goes back, is she making coffee, right?
I feel like this is around the part right before she finds the bodies.
Before she finds the body, she makes the coffee.
Yeah.
Because she makes the whole coffee in one shot. Water, gets the beans, pours the water in there, presses the thing, like waits a little bit, like looking around. It's like long. It's like, is it suspense or is what? Like, but that's before she makes the coffee before she starts finding the bodies, because it's not after, right?
They're just kind of building the suspense because now there's a bunch of dead bodies just around the house.
And then she runs back inside because she's scared.
Yeah, then Brenda's corpse gets thrown through a window.
And that's also like old lady throwing somebody through.
Yeah. They didn't even want people to really think about it. I mean, and I like that. It's fun. Alice is freaking out because she's trying to tie the doors shut, and then now she's trapped by this killer inside. Pretty suspenseful stuff. She runs out into this old woman's arms. Just this random old woman coming.
Yeah, where did she come from?
Who says her name is Mrs. Voorhees. She's like just so calm, like, not suspicious at all. She seems to, be relieved, and she's crying and hugging on her and stuff, and she doesn't think this is weird. And this lady came out of nowhere after all these dead bodies started appearing. Mrs. Voorhees, she insists that they go on in and take a look around. Alice begs her not to, but they go inside anyway. Then Mrs. Voorhees has a complete meltdown. So this is where shit starts getting good.
My son Jason. Was a very good swimmer.
Yeah, she goes to this whole tangent and starts ranting about her son, Jason Voorhees, how he's abandoned and he's a great swimmer. He drowned because of these neglectful camp counselors, and she's totally just projecting on these new camp counselors too. It's like, did she just come back because they were rebuilding this? She's like,
well, she doesn't want it to happen. She doesn't want one kid to drown, so she kills everybody else.
I think that she's the best actor in the movie, though. That's what I wrote. Like, it's I thought she was pretty good.
But then she's like supposedly like stabbing Kevin Bacon through a mattress and like lifting up all these bodies. But then she just starts like slapping Al. Like,
This is where we find out that Mrs. Voorhees is the real killer too, and Jason is actually nowhere to be found. Rewatching it or without knowing, if I was not to know the twist of the movie, I don't know if I would think that she did all of that.
it's just like a thing that happens. Like,
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it seems like they were confused on what they were doing too. It feels like they wanted it to be a twist because it seemed like this big guy killing all these people.
they didn't like want you to think it was a man or anything like that. They just didn't really plan it out too much. It was like, oh, it was this person, like whatever.
It's easy to forget while watching this first film too that he actually doesn't even make an appearance in this one.
Not at all. Yeah.
The famous hockey mask that doesn't even come in until like what the third.
Yeah. One and two.
For
How?
three.
So part one, like if it was its own thing, it would just be some really weird thing. Like, what if it didn't make it? If it didn't like get the franchise it did, because there's so many slasher movies.
Yeah.
Like during that time, that one could have just been any other one.
Now it's like a standoff between Alice and this old woman in a sweater.
At one point, I think Pamela Voorhees is attacking Alice with an oar, like a boat oar. But she's like actually doing like putting their heads back, like.
Throwing meat hooks, man. And then, of course, she ends up getting the upper hand on Mrs. Voorhees by smacking her with a frying pan. Fight just continues. She does wield the famous Jason machete, though. I noticed that's pretty cool. I mean, that's where it all came from.
That's why Jason got the machete, because it was the weapon that his mother's head was cut off. I mean, they bring it up every once in a while, but I really like that Jason is mad because of his own mother. Like, he's like mama's boy, kind of weird. Like, in the sequels, like, they start just getting like brutal, and then Jason's just like this like soldier kind of guy. Like, it's supposed to be like an old woman and a weird decrepit son. Then they kind of just like space that out and just it's like, oh, Jason's a badass kind of guy. He's like, she gets her head cut off with the machete. She's like, the hands are gripping. Last cut of the man hands. Like, yeah. Then everything's safe. Okay. And then it's just fine, you know, there's really nice music and she's in things. Yeah. And then she jumps out of water. I mean, that's like the only reason that movie's sold is because of that last 30 seconds where he jumps out of the water and
dude, that made me jump, man. Like again, because I forgot about it. I had it cranked, and then it was just like. I really
like that song though. The music is so good, but that Harry Manfredini score, it's like.
We also got to, because you wanted to talk about your book. There's
a thing where the end of the movie, when little kid Jason jumps out, grabs her. It's like the most popular part of the movie. That's probably why they put him in the sequels. She's talking to the cops, and she's like, "What about that boy?" And the cops are like, "You're crazy." Like,
that's just more not thought out shit.
The guy admits that it's just a total Carrie ripoff too. He's like, "Yeah, I saw Carrie, and I wanted to rip it off. I did it."
Yeah, and then she wakes up and she's just laying in the hospital bed, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of the movie. No more surprises, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so that jump scare, it got me. I'm not going to lie. All in all, I think that the kills were really, really well done in this movie. Special effects looked really good, you know, although it looked fake. You know, I thought it looked good for what they were doing, you know?
I'm competing with him in interviews. He talks about, he's like, I saw that stuff in there. Like, he saw, like, viscera and stuff. And he's like, and then I put it in my mind and I made it later. It's like, what?
It's like, that's one way to use that traumatized portion of your brain, I guess.
Yeah.
I do think that the movie loses points with me, though, because it doesn't have Jason in it at all.
It could be its own thing.
Yeah, because I feel like, it could have been. We're just kind of stuck at this point, you know, with all these counselors, you know, just kind of.
It almost should be like a separate, or it's like a preamble to the rest of the movies or something.
It laid the tile, I guess.
When I was a little kid, yeah, like Jason or whatever it was, but then I came to really just like that first one and how weird it is.
I feel like personally, that this movie, maybe a couple times watching it, maybe it's because you saw it at a really young age, but I feel like it would be pretty boring to go back and watch this one over and over again. But it
is, but that's what a mumblecore is not entertaining. You just watch it. It's just like, what? Why did you even make this?
It's like white noise for people. All right, well, Friday the 13th. I'm giving Friday the 13th a B minus for some good Halloween fun.
There's two ways to rate it: a triple A plus double crazy plus.
Yeah.
You know, for just like memorability, weirdness, maybe lack of entertainment, insanity, filmmaking, continuity, sense. Then it's like a D. Yeah.
It is like a D, but I thought, B minus. It is like a B movie. It is just kind of boring.
Mumblecore weirdness. Yeah. So I wrote a book, and I kind of the idea of my book was like, what is in my mind, and I have a whole like section in there about Friday the 13th. I don't actually have any copies of my book, but you have one there, right?
I got Fish Mother right here.
Go buy it, because on the back there's like a glossary. You can look up the page.
All right, so this is the Friday the 13th movie franchise. It's on 138. As of the writing of this book, there are 12 entries in the Friday the 13th movie franchise.
Yeah.
The next one would be its golden movie as number 13. Production is held up due to copyright disagreements. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen the movies. Go watch all 12 before continuing. Part 1.
Yeah.
Jason's mother is the killer. Part 2, Jason is the killer, wearing the sack mask with the one eye hole. Part 3 is in 3D, and is the first movie for Jason to get his hockey mask. Part 4 introduces the only reoccurring protagonist, unless you include the final girl of Part 1, Alice, who was killed in the opening of Part 2. Tommy Jarvis, who is played by Corey Feldman. He kills Jason dead, all the way dead. Part 5 is Jarvis at a mental institution. Jason kills people at the institution, but is revealed to be someone else wearing a Jason costume. Part 6, Jason lives. Jason is brought back from the dead with the magic lightning. Part 6 is very campy. Part 7, Jason fights a girl with the telekinesis. Part 8 is called Jason in Manhattan, but more than 3/4 takes place on a boat. Part 9, Jason goes to hell. Jason's body is exploded. He becomes a spirit worm thing and possesses people to kill them. Part 10, Jason X, takes place in the future. Jason ends up on a spaceship and becomes a cyborg. Uber Jason. Oh man. Part 11, Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street mostly teams up with Jason to kill, and they don't fight until the final part, or till the finale. Part 12 is the remake that compresses the story of parts 1 through 4 roughly and loosely. The remake came out in 2009 with the legal battle over, so when can we get another chapter, question mark.
But the legal battle is really weird, because it's like Victor Miller, who wrote the first movie, is suing over rights to the character of Jason. Rightly, they're saying that guy did not create Jason, but he says that he did create Jason, but it was part 1. The writer of part 1, but yeah, I mean, everybody just wants money, but he says that he created Jason 12 years ago, or 13 years ago at this point.
Man,
I saw that one in the theater. I was really excited for it when it came out, too. These days, the kids really like the remake. They're like putting remake at the top of the movie.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on the remake. I saw that in theaters.
I like the remake. Okay, it's definitely brings back some memories of Jason being a soldier and like kind of badass.
Yeah.
Favorite parts of 1 and 2, even up to 4, he's still a little bumbly. The Friday the 13th, like part 1, like when I was little, I liked it for one reason, and then as I grew. Now I like it for the weirdness.
All right, well, that's another episode of Movie Buffers. Thanks for coming by, Kenny, and I am hoping to get you back on here again soon. Let's do Friday the 13th too. Yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.